A week before Christmas, I overheard my wife and her family plan to use me as a babysitter for the guests' kids. So I changed my plans. On December 24th, my wife called. "Where are you?" I laughed and advised not to wait for me and the catering. So here's the thing about introductions. Nobody ever tells you the whole truth up front, right? Like when people say, "Oh, this won't take long," and then you're stuck in a 3-hour meeting about whether the office coffee should be medium roast or dark roast. Spoiler alert, it's always going to taste like disappointment regardless. My name's Marcus, I'm 32 years old, and I work as a systems analyst, which is basically corporate speak for professional problem solver for people who think turning it off and on again is rocket science. You know the type. They call you in a panic because their computer is broken, and 9 times out of 10, they've just minimized their browser window and think the entire internet has vanished into thin air. I spend my days convincing middle managers that their urgent, company-ending catastrophes are actually just them forgetting their passwords for the 15th time this month. But hey, life's not terrible. I've got a decent apartment in a neighborhood where the biggest crime is people not picking up their dog's business. A salary that lets me buy name-brand cereal without checking my bank account first, and a sarcastic streak that's been finely honed through years of dealing with both corporate nonsense and family drama. Trust me, you need a sense of humor when your biggest life skill is explaining to a 60-year-old VP why he can't just download more memory to make his laptop faster. Now, let me tell you about my wife, Laura. She's 30, gorgeous, smart, and has this amazing talent for making every task sound like it was my idea in the first place. You know what I'm talking about? That special kind of relationship magic where "we should really clean the garage" somehow translates to "Marcus should really clean the garage" while I supervise from the kitchen with a glass of wine. She's the unofficial queen of what I like to call strategic delegation. And honestly, I'm kind of impressed by how smooth she is about it. Laura's got this older sister named Bianca, and Bianca comes with the full package deal. A husband named Victor, and 2 kids who have more energy than a Red Bull factory explosion. There's Leo, who's 9 and has apparently decided that volume control is for quitters, and Clara, who's 7 and treats every conversation like it's a competitive debate where second place means social exile. These kids are like tiny tornadoes wrapped in superhero costumes, and somehow, every single time there's a family gathering, I get promoted to the role of free entertainment manager. Here's the kicker. I never applied for this job. There was no interview, no job description, no employee handbook explaining that marrying into this family came with an automatic childcare certification. One day, I'm just some guy dating Laura, and the next thing I know, I'm being handed juice boxes and asked to referee arguments about whether Batman could beat Superman in a fight. For the record, the correct answer is who cares? They're both fictional. But try explaining that to a 9-year-old who's prepared to die on this hill. The family gatherings are something else entirely. Picture this. Every holiday, birthday, or random Tuesday when someone decides they're feeling family-oriented, suddenly my apartment becomes Grand Central Station for chaos. Laura's parents, Gerald and Diane, show up with enough food to feed a small army and immediately start rearranging my furniture like they're staging it for sale. Gerald's this guy who thinks every conversation needs his input, even when we're talking about something completely outside his wheelhouse, like how my job works or why I think pineapple on pizza is a crime against humanity. Diane, meanwhile, has this supernatural ability to turn any casual comment into a life lesson. I could mention that it's raining outside, and somehow she'd spin it into a 20-minute speech about perseverance and how, when I was your age, we didn't even have weather apps. She means well, I think, but listening to her talk is like being trapped in a motivational poster that never stops talking. And then there's the rest of the extended family circus. There's Uncle Rick, who's never met a conversation he couldn't make awkward by bringing up politics or his theories about why kids these days are too soft. There's Aunt Margaret, who treats every family gathering like it's an opportunity to update everyone on her neighbor's business, whether we asked or not. And don't even get me started on the cousins. There's always at least 3 of them, and they all seem to think my apartment is their personal playground. The worst part? Everyone just assumes I'm on board with all of this. Like somewhere in my wedding vows, I agreed to become the family's go-to guy for everything from tech support to babysitting to being the designated driver for people who just had 1 glass of wine 3 glasses ago. Nobody ever asked if I wanted to spend my weekends explaining to Leo why he can't reprogram my smart TV to only play YouTube videos of people falling down, or if I enjoyed having Clara critique my cooking like she's some kind of 7-year-old Gordon Ramsay. But here's the thing that really gets me. They all act like I should be grateful for the privilege. Like being conscripted into this family entertainment army is some kind of honor. Oh, Marcus loves kids, they say, as if I've ever given them any indication that my life goal was to become an unpaid camp counselor. Marcus is so good with them. They beam, while I'm in the background trying to stop Leo from seeing if my coffee table is strong enough to use as a trampoline. The truth is, I never signed up for any of this. I fell in love with Laura, not her entire extended family and their assumption that my free time was now their free time. But somehow, over the years, I'd become the guy who just goes along with it all, smiling and nodding while inside. I'm calculating how many vacation days I'd need to take to recover from each fun family weekend. And that's how I found myself here, folks, 32 years old, successful in my career, happily married, and somehow completely trapped in a role I never auditioned for. The family entertainment coordinator, the designated babysitter, the guy who apparently loves nothing more than turning his peaceful Saturday into a 3-ring circus featuring juice spills, arguments about cartoon characters, and enough screaming to make a heavy metal concert sound like a library. Spoiler alert, things were about to get a whole lot more interesting. You know how some people have religious experiences on Saturdays? Like, they wake up naturally around 9, make themselves a decent breakfast, maybe read the paper, catch up on shows they've been meaning to watch. Yeah, well, forget everything you know about peaceful Saturday mornings, because mine got hijacked somewhere along the way, and I'm still not entirely sure how it happened. It started innocently enough, like most disasters do. Picture this. It's a beautiful Saturday morning. I'm planning to sleep in until at least 10, maybe tackle that book I've been pretending to read for 3 months, and then bam, the doorbell rings at exactly 8:30 a.m. Not 8:29, not 8:31. 8:30 on the dot, like it's been programmed into some kind of family chaos algorithm. I stumble to the door in my boxers and an old college t-shirt that's seen better decades. And there she is, Bianca, looking like she just stepped out of a magazine ad for suburban mom who's got her life together, standing next to her minivan with Leo and Clara bouncing around like they've been mainlining espresso since dawn. She's got this huge smile plastered on her face, the kind of smile that immediately makes you suspicious because nobody's that happy at 8:30 on a Saturday morning unless they're about to dump their problems on someone else. "Morning, Marcus," she chirps, like we're old army buddies instead of reluctant in-laws. "Hope you're ready for some fun today." Fun, that's what she calls it. Like having 2 hyperactive kids tear through my apartment for 8 hours straight is equivalent to a day at Disney World. Leo's already pushing past me into the living room, making airplane noises at a volume that could wake the dead, while Clara's giving me this look like she's sizing up my defenses and planning her attack strategy. Bianca," I say, still trying to wake up enough to form complete sentences. "What's going on here?" "Oh, didn't Laura tell you? Victor and I have that couples therapy session today, remember? We talked about this last week." "No, we definitely did not talk about this last week." I would have remembered agreeing to surrender my Saturday to the tiny terrorist squad currently exploring my kitchen like it's uncharted territory. But there's Bianca, already unloading what looks like enough supplies for a week-long camping trip from her minivan: backpacks, juice boxes, snacks, and what appears to be a portable DVD player from 2003. "We'll be back around dinner time," she calls out, already halfway back to her car. "You guys are going to have such a blast." And just like that, she's gone. Disappeared into the suburban ether like some kind of magical child-dumping fairy, leaving me standing in my doorway in my underwear, watching her taillights vanish around the corner. I swear I heard her tires squeal a little, like she was making a getaway from a bank robbery. I turn around to survey the damage, and it's like a bomb went off in my living room. Leo's already figured out how to turn my sound system up to 11 and is treating my coffee table like his personal stage, while Clara somehow managed to reorganize my entire DVD collection in the 30 seconds I was distracted. She's holding up my copy of Die Hard with this judgmental expression that would make a Supreme Court justice proud. "Marcus, why do you have so many movies with bad words in them?" she asks, like she's conducting a moral audit of my entertainment choices. Because I'm a grown-up, Clara, and grown-ups sometimes watch movies with bad words. That's not very nice. Neither is rearranging someone's stuff without asking, but here we are. Meanwhile, Leo's discovered my PlayStation and is attempting to hook up some game that involves a lot of shooting and explosions. Great. Nothing says responsible babysitting like letting a 9-year-old play Grand Theft Auto for 8 hours. Hey, buddy, maybe we should stick to something more age-appropriate. I suggest, gently wrestling the controller away from him. But this looks awesome. There's cars and guns and a rating that says you need to be about 10 years older before your brain can handle it. How about we find something that won't give your mom a reason to never let you come back here? Although honestly, at this point, I'm not sure that would be such a bad thing. This has become the pattern, folks. Every single Saturday, like I'm trapped in some kind of twisted Groundhog Day scenario, Bianca shows up at my door with her offspring and vanishes for the entire day. Sometimes it's couples therapy, sometimes it's a spa day with Victor, sometimes it's just, we need some adult time. And somehow, I've become the default babysitter for the greater metropolitan area. The worst part? Everyone acts like this is totally normal. Like I don't have a life, hobbies, or any desire to spend my weekends doing literally anything other than preventing two sugar-fueled maniacs from burning down my apartment. Laura thinks it's sweet that her sister trusts me so much with the kids. Trust me, lady, I'm not running a licensed daycare operation here. I'm just the guy who's too polite to say no when people drop their responsibilities on my doorstep. I tried explaining this to Laura once, in what I thought was a reasonable, adult conversation about boundaries and mutual respect. Babe, I said, I didn't realize I signed a contract to be the neighborhood Chuck E. Cheese when we got married. She just laughed, gave me one of those patronizing kisses on the forehead, and said, they love you, and you're so good with them. Yeah, and mosquitoes love me too, but I don't see anyone volunteering to be a human bug buffet. Just because I'm capable of keeping 2 kids alive for 8 hours doesn't mean I want to make it my weekend hobby. But here's the thing that really gets me. Bianca and Victor go on these elaborate date days that cost more than my monthly grocery budget, while I'm here playing referee in World War III between siblings who can't agree on what cartoon to watch. They're out there eating at fancy restaurants with names I can't pronounce, getting couples massages, probably taking Instagram photos of their artisanal cocktails, while I'm explaining to Leo why he can't use my kitchen knives to make a fort, and talking Clara out of giving my houseplant a makeover with her crayons. And they never offer to pay me. Not even gas money or a hey, thanks for sacrificing your entire Saturday so we can pretend we don't have children for 8 hours. It's just expected, like I'm some kind of family resource that exists solely for their convenience. The real kicker? When they pick up the kids at the end of the day, they always ask the same question. Did you guys have fun? And Leo and Clara, bless their little chaotic hearts, always say yes, because kids think chaos is fun. They don't understand that for adults, fun usually involves lower decibel levels and fewer sticky fingerprints on everything we own. So that's how my Saturdays became kidnap days, folks. One minute, I'm a regular guy with weekend plans, and the next I'm running an unlicensed daycare center for relatives who treat my free time like their personal vacation opportunity. You know that moment when you finally work up the courage to address something that's been bothering you for months, and you practice exactly what you're going to say in the mirror like you're preparing for a Senate hearing? Yeah, well, let me tell you how that worked out for me, because apparently I live in some kind of alternate universe where reasonable adult conversations go to die. It was a Sunday in late October, one of those perfect fall days where the leaves are doing their whole Instagram-worthy color show, and the air has that crisp feeling that makes you want to drink apple cider and pretend you're in a Hallmark movie. Laura and I were heading over to her parents' house for the weekly family dinner, which is basically a mandatory attendance event disguised as a casual get-together. You know the drill. Everyone pretends it's totally optional, while simultaneously guilt-tripping anyone who even thinks about skipping. I've been psyching myself up for this conversation all week. I had my talking points ready, my reasonable tone practiced, and what I thought was a foolproof strategy for addressing the Saturday kidnapping situation without coming off like a complete monster. Because that's the thing about family dynamics, right? You can't just come out and say, hey, I'm tired of being your unpaid babysitter every weekend. You have to dress it up in diplomatic language and pretend you're asking for a favor instead of demanding basic human decency. Gerald and Diane's house is one of those suburban fortresses that looks like it was designed by someone who took the phrase American dream way too literally. We're talking white picket fence, perfectly manicured lawn that would make a golf course jealous, and enough decorative seasonal items to stock a craft store. Walking up to their front door always feels like entering a Norman Rockwell painting. If Norman Rockwell had been really into passive-aggressive family dynamics. Dinner was the usual affair. Pot roast that could have been used as construction material, mashed potatoes that somehow managed to be both lumpy and watery at the same time, and enough carbs to put a marathon runner into a coma. Diane's cooking exists in this weird space where it's not quite good enough to enjoy, but not quite bad enough to complain about without seeming ungrateful. It's like culinary purgatory. The conversation around the table was typical family dinner background noise. Gerald holding forth about some minor local political issue like he's running for mayor, Diane updating everyone on the neighbor's business whether they wanted to hear it or not, and Bianca giving a play-by-play of Leo and Clara's latest adventures in public embarrassment. Laura was doing her usual thing of looking beautiful while somehow managing to contribute to every conversation without actually saying anything substantial. I was waiting for the right moment to bring up my Saturday situation, but every time I thought I had an opening, someone would launch into another riveting story about grocery store drama or how the HOA was handling the great mailbox controversy of 2023. It's amazing how families can fill 3 hours with conversations that could have been resolved in 3 minutes. Finally, during a brief lull in the Great Neighbor drama update, I decided to make my move. I cleared my throat in what I hoped was a confident, conversation-starting kind of way. So, hey, I wanted to talk about something. I began, using my most diplomatic voice. You know how Bianca's been dropping off Leo and Clara at our place every Saturday? The table got quiet in that way that makes you immediately regret opening your mouth. You know that silence, the kind where everyone stops chewing and suddenly finds their mashed potatoes absolutely fascinating. Yeah, Bianca said, with this edge in her voice like I was about to criticize her parenting or something. Well, I continued, trying to keep my tone light and reasonable. I was thinking maybe we could work out some kind of rotation or something. You know, maybe I'd like a Saturday off occasionally to, actually live my own life. I thought this was pretty reasonable, right? I wasn't demanding anything crazy, just suggesting that maybe, occasionally, I might want to spend my weekend doing something other than preventing 2 tiny humans from destroying my apartment. Maybe I wanted to sleep past 8:30 or go to Home Depot without having to explain to a 9-year-old why he can't ride in the shopping cart, or just sit in my own living room without someone asking me to make them a snack every 15 minutes. Gerald didn't even look up from his plate. He just kept methodically working through his pot roast like I hadn't said anything at all. Finally, without making eye contact, he delivered what I can only assume he thought was the final word on the subject. Family helps family. For words. That was it. For words that apparently settled the entire discussion in his mind. No acknowledgement that I might have valid feelings about the situation, no consideration that maybe helping family shouldn't involve sacrificing every single weekend, no recognition that I'm an actual human being with my own life and interests. Just family helps family, like it's some kind of sacred commandment carved in stone. But wait, it gets better. Diane, not to be outdone in the dismissive response department, decided to chime in with her own piece of wisdom. Marcus, honey, this is great practice for when you and Laura have kids. Great practice. Like being an unpaid babysitter for 2 kids who aren't mine is some kind of training program for parenthood. Like dealing with Leo's sugar crashes and Clara's creative interpretations of house rules is preparing me for the joys of raising my own children. And the implication that Laura and I definitely, absolutely, without question would be having kids, like that decision had been made for us at some family meeting I apparently wasn't invited to. I looked around the table, waiting for someone, anyone, to acknowledge that maybe I had a point. That maybe asking for 1 Saturday off per month wasn't equivalent to abandoning the family in their time of need. But nope. Laura was giving me this look that clearly said, please don't make this into a thing, while Bianca was doing that thing where she suddenly becomes very interested in cutting her food into microscopic pieces. So I did what I always do in these situations. I smiled. That special kind of smile you use when you're surrounded by people who think you're being unreasonable for having basic human needs. Oh, great, I said, with what I hoped sounded like good humor. So this is like unpaid training? Do I get a certificate at the end? Maybe a badge that says Certified Family Entertainment Coordinator? I thought it was funny. I mean, it was funny, right? The absurdity of treating unpaid babysitting like it's some kind of professional development opportunity? The idea that I should be grateful for the privilege of having my weekends commandeered by tiny chaos agents? Nobody laughed but me. Story of my life, honestly. Gerald finally looked up from his plate, and I could see that look in his eyes, the one that says he thinks I'm being selfish and ungrateful and probably a disappointment to the entire family tree. Marcus, he said in that tone people use when they're trying to be patient with someone they think is being deliberately obtuse. This is what families do. We support each other. Support each other. Right. Because apparently support in this family is a one-way street that runs directly to my apartment every Saturday morning. Diane nodded like Gerald had just delivered the Gettysburg Address. When Laura's father and I were young, we helped with his brother's kids all the time. It's called being part of a family, Marcus. And there it was, the comparison to their own perfect past, where apparently everyone was happy to sacrifice their personal time for the greater good of family harmony. Never mind that they probably got something in return, like reciprocal babysitting or actual gratitude. Never mind that they were probably asked before being volunteered for child wrangling duty. Laura finally jumped into the conversation, but not exactly in the way I was hoping. Marcus, you know the kids adore you. And you're really good with them. The kids adore me. I'm really good with them. These have become the go-to responses whenever I express any reservation about my role as the family's unpaid entertainment staff. As if being good at something automatically means you want to do it every single weekend for the rest of your natural life. I'm also good at fixing computer problems, but that doesn't mean I want to spend every Saturday troubleshooting Gerald's email issues. Bianca decided to pile on at this point. Besides, Marcus, it's not like Victor and I are out partying or anything. We're working on our relationship. Couples therapy is important work. Couples therapy, right? Because nothing says important work like dropping your kids off at someone else's house so you can spend 3 hours talking about your feelings while someone else deals with the consequences of your reproductive choices. And we really appreciate it, she continued, with that tone people use when they're about to ask for another favor. The kids always have such a great time with Uncle Marcus. Uncle Marcus? When did I become Uncle Marcus? I don't remember signing up for uncle duties, and I definitely don't remember getting the uncle benefits package that should come with that title. I realized at that moment that I was fighting a losing battle. This wasn't actually a discussion about finding a reasonable solution to my Saturday problem. This was a family intervention designed to make me feel guilty for even bringing it up. They'd already decided that my weekends belonged to them, and my job was to smile, nod, and accept my fate as the designated child wrangler. You know what? I said, still trying to keep things light even though I was starting to feel like I was drowning in family expectations. You're right. I guess I just need to embrace my new career as a weekend entertainment coordinator. Maybe I should start charging admission. Again with the silence. You'd think I'd suggested we start a meth lab in the garage instead of making a joke about getting compensated for my time. The conversation moved on to safer topics after that. Something about Diane's book club and Gerald's ongoing war with the neighbor's tree that was apparently dropping leaves in the wrong yard. But I spent the rest of dinner thinking about how quickly my reasonable request had been dismissed, how easily my feelings had been steamrolled by 4 words, and some guilt about family obligations. Driving home that night, Laura was unusually quiet. Finally, she said, "You know they mean well, right? They're not trying to take advantage of you." "I know," I said, even though I wasn't entirely sure I believed it. "I just thought maybe we could find some middle ground, you know? Maybe alternate weekends or something. The kids really do love spending time with you," she said, like that settled everything. And maybe it should have. Maybe I should have been satisfied knowing that Leo and Clara enjoyed turning my apartment into their personal playground every Saturday. Maybe I should have felt honored that the family trusted me enough to dump their childcare responsibilities on me without warning. But sitting there in the car, listening to Laura rationalize why my weekends weren't really mine anymore, I realized something important. This wasn't going to get better on its own. The family had spoken, and I was officially conscripted into permanent Saturday duty whether I liked it or not. The question was, what was I going to do about it? You know how sometimes life gives you those little warning signs that disaster is heading your way? Like when your boss sends you an email that starts with, "We need to talk," or when your dentist gets that look on his face during a routine cleaning. Well, apparently I'm terrible at reading those signs, because when my phone rang on a Tuesday evening in early December, I actually thought it might be good news. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. I was sitting in my favorite chair, the one piece of furniture in my apartment that the weekend invasion forces haven't managed to destroy yet, working my way through a beer and catching up on some mindless TV show about people buying houses they can't afford. Laura was in the kitchen doing that thing she does where she moves stuff around and calls it organizing. And for once, everything felt peaceful. No screaming children, no family drama, just a regular Tuesday night where I could almost remember what it felt like to be a normal person with a normal life. Then my phone started buzzing, and I made the mistake of looking at the caller ID. Diane, Laura's mom, calling me directly, which never happens unless someone died or she needs me to fix her computer again. I should have let it go to voicemail, pretended I was in the shower, or suddenly developed selective hearing. But no, like an idiot, I answered. "Hey Diane, what's up?" "Oh Marcus, honey, I'm so glad I caught you." Her voice had that artificially cheerful tone that people use when they're about to dump a massive problem on you and want you to think it's actually a wonderful opportunity. "I have such exciting news." Exciting news from Diane usually means more work for Marcus, but I was still operating under the delusion that maybe, just maybe, this would be different. "We've decided to host Christmas Eve this year," she announced, like she was telling me I'd won the lottery. "That's great," I said, genuinely meaning it. Christmas at their house meant I could show up, eat food someone else cooked, and leave whenever I wanted. Maybe even sneak out early if the family chaos got too intense. "Laura and I will definitely be there." "Well, that's wonderful, but here's the thing, we're thinking big this year. Really big." And there it was. That sinking feeling you get when you realize the other shoe is about to drop directly onto your head. "How big are we talking?" I asked, though I was already starting to regret the question. 25 people. 25. She said it like it was a perfectly reasonable number, like hosting a small army for dinner was just another casual family gathering. I could practically hear the dollar signs adding up in my head. "Wow, that's a lot of people," I managed to say. "I know, isn't it exciting? We've got both sides of the family coming. All of Laura's aunts and uncles, most of the cousins, plus Rick's extended family from his side. Oh, and the Hendersons from next door, because you know how much Gerald loves talking to Bill about their golf games." The Hendersons. She was inviting the neighbors to family Christmas, because apparently 23 family members wasn't quite enough chaos for one evening. "That sounds like it's going to be quite the production," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral while my brain started calculating the logistical nightmare this was going to become. "Oh, it will be. Which brings me to the best part. We want you to handle the catering." And there it was. The real reason for the call. Not, "Would you like to help with catering?" or "Do you think you could contribute to the food situation?" Nope. "We want you to handle the catering." Like it was already decided, like my credit card was just sitting there waiting to be maxed out for the greater good of family holiday cheer. Me? Handle the catering for 25 people? Well, you're so good at organizing these things, Marcus. Remember last year when you brought that wonderful lasagna? Everyone loved it. Last year, I brought one lasagna that I picked up from the grocery store deli counter for $12. Apparently, this qualified me as the family's official catering coordinator for events roughly the size of a small wedding. "Diane, catering for 25 people is going to be pretty expensive," I said, hoping she'd take the hint that maybe the financial aspect of this plan hadn't been fully thought through. "Oh, don't worry about that, honey. We know you and Laura are doing so well for yourselves. And it's Christmas. It's about bringing the family together, not about money." "Right. It's not about money when it's not your money. Funny how that works. Besides," she continued, "Laura mentioned you got that nice bonus at work this year." Of course Laura mentioned my bonus. The bonus I was planning to use to maybe take an actual vacation, or pay down some credit cards, or do literally anything other than subsidize a family Christmas party for people who think my bank account exists solely for their entertainment. "I don't know, Diane. Catering for that many people is going to cost a fortune. We're probably looking at close to $2,000, maybe more." I threw out that number hoping it would scare her off, Make her realize that maybe asking one person to bankroll the entire holiday celebration wasn't exactly fair. But Diane has this superpower where large numbers just bounce off her like she's wearing some kind of financial reality deflector shield. Oh, Marcus, you're such a worrier. It'll be fine. And think about how grateful everyone will be. This could become a wonderful new family tradition. A wonderful new family tradition where Marcus pays for everything and everyone else shows up to eat. Yeah, that sounds like exactly the kind of tradition this family would love to establish. I'll need to talk to Laura about this, I said, hoping my wife would be the voice of reason in this conversation. Of course, I'm sure she'll be thrilled. Oh, and Marcus? We were thinking maybe something really nice this year. You know, since it's such a special occasion. None of that grocery store stuff. We want the real deal. Professional catering. Professional catering for 25 people at Christmas time. I could practically hear my savings account crying. After I hung up, I sat there staring at my phone like it had personally betrayed me. $2,000. Maybe more. For one dinner. For people who would probably complain if the food wasn't exactly to their liking and then leave me to deal with the cleanup. Laura wandered in from the kitchen, took one look at my face, and immediately knew something was wrong. What's up? You look like someone just told you they're canceling Netflix. Your mom wants me to cater Christmas Eve. For 25 people. Professional catering. Laura's eyebrows shot up. 25 people? Who's coming? Apparently everyone. Both sides of the family, plus the neighbors, plus anyone else she can think of between now and Christmas. And she wants you to pay for all of it. She didn't exactly phrase it as a request. Laura sat down next to me, and I could see her doing the math in her head. $2,000 is a lot of money, even with my bonus. It's vacation money, or new car money, or literally anything other than one meal money. Maybe we could do something simpler, she suggested. You know, make it ourselves, keep costs down. Laura, we're talking about feeding 25 people. That's not a dinner party, that's a restaurant-level operation. I don't even own enough plates for 25 people, let alone have the skills to cook for a crowd that size. So what are you going to do? That was the million-dollar question, wasn't it? Or in this case, the $2,000 question. I could say no, of course, and deal with the inevitable family drama that would follow. I could suggest alternatives, like everyone bringing a dish or splitting the cost among the attendees. Or I could do what I always do, smile, nod, and pay up while everyone else enjoys the benefits of my financial sacrifice. I guess I'm going to call some caterers and see how broke I'm going to be by New Year's. The next morning, I started making calls. Professional catering in December is like trying to buy concert tickets for a popular band. Everything's booked, everything's expensive, and everyone acts like you should have planned this 6 months ago. The first 3 places I called were completely unavailable. The 4th place had an opening but wanted $3,000 for what they called their holiday premium package. $3,000 for one meal. I've bought cars that cost less than that. Finally, I found a place that could do it for $1,800, which was still enough money to make my wallet whimper, but at least it wouldn't require me to sell a kidney on the black market. When I called Laura with the good news, and I use the term good very loosely here, she was quiet for a long moment. $1,800, she repeated. Yeah, and that's actually a deal, apparently. Everyone else wanted more. Marcus, that's a lot of money. Tell me something I don't know. Are you sure you want to do this? It was a fair question. Was I sure I wanted to drop nearly $2,000 on a family dinner where I'd probably spend half the evening dealing with Leo and Clara while everyone else socialized? Was I sure I wanted to establish a precedent where Marcus handles all the expensive family obligations while everyone else just shows up? But what was the alternative? Disappoint the family during the holidays? Deal with Diane's passive-aggressive comments about how some people care more about money than family? Face Gerald's disapproving looks every time I showed up for Sunday dinner? No, I said honestly. I'm not sure at all, but I don't see what choice I have. So I booked the catering. $1,850 for Christmas Eve dinner, paid in full up front, because apparently that's how these things work. My savings account balance dropped like a rock, and suddenly my nice Christmas bonus felt a lot less nice. But hey, at least I get to eat some good food, right? At least I get to enjoy the fruits of my expensive labor while surrounded by the people I was doing this for. Oh, Marcus. Sweet, naive, optimistic Marcus. If only I'd known what was coming next. You know that feeling when you accidentally overhear something that completely changes your perspective on a situation? Like when you find out your coworkers have been calling you the computer whisperer behind your back, or when you discover your neighbor's been complaining to the HOA about your excessive lawn ornament situation, even though you literally just have one garden gnome. Well, let me tell you about the conversation that made me realize I wasn't just being used. I was being systematically played by people who had turned manipulation into an art form. It was exactly 1 week before Christmas Eve, and I was feeling pretty good about myself, actually. The catering was booked, paid for, and handled. I'd managed to coordinate the whole thing without having a complete breakdown. And for once in my life, I felt like maybe I was actually getting the hang of this whole family responsibility thing. Sure, it cost me nearly $2,000. But hey, at least everyone would be happy, right? At least I'd get some credit for stepping up and handling the logistics like a responsible adult. Man, was I about to get a reality check. I'd stopped by Gerald and Diane's house to drop off some paperwork the caterer needed, dietary restrictions, headcount confirmation, that sort of thing. It was around 2 in the afternoon on a Wednesday, one of those gray December days where the sun gives up trying by 3 o'clock and everything looks like it's been filmed through a depressing Instagram filter. The front door was unlocked, which wasn't unusual. Gerald and Diane live in one of those neighborhoods where people still think it's 1955 and crime is something that only happens to other people in other places. I let myself in, calling out hello, in that way you do when you're not sure if anyone's home, but you don't want to accidentally scare the crap out of someone. No answer, but I could hear Diane's voice coming from the kitchen, so I headed in that direction. She was on the phone, pacing around the kitchen island in that way people do when they're having an animated conversation. I was about to announce myself when I heard something that made me freeze in my tracks. Don't worry, Marcus will babysit all 9 kids upstairs. 9 kids. All 9 kids. Upstairs. While the adults. What exactly? I found myself standing in the hallway like some kind of domestic spy, listening to my mother-in-law plan out Christmas Eve like she was coordinating a military operation. And apparently, I was the unpaid enlisted man who'd been volunteered for the worst possible assignment. He loves it, Diane continued, and I could practically hear the smile in her voice. You know how he is with Leo and Clara. He'll keep all the kids entertained upstairs while we adults can actually enjoy ourselves downstairs. We adults. We adults. Like I wasn't an adult. Like I was some kind of overgrown teenager whose job was to wrangle the actual children while the real grown-ups had sophisticated conversations about mortgage rates and whatever the hell else adults talk about when they're not preventing small humans from destroying property. Margaret, trust me, it'll be perfect, Diane went on, and I realized she was talking to Laura's Aunt Margaret, the one who treats every family gathering like it's her personal opportunity to hold court and update everyone on her various medical complaints. Marcus will have the kids doing crafts or watching movies or whatever, and we can actually have a civilized dinner without little voices interrupting every 5 minutes. A civilized dinner. That I was paying for, that I'd be too busy to eat because I'd be upstairs playing camp counselor to 9 sugar-fueled tiny humans who'd probably spend the evening seeing how much chaos they could create in my in-laws' house. Oh, and the best part. Diane lowered her voice like she was sharing a state secret. He already paid for all the catering, so we don't have to worry about coordinating food contributions or any of that nonsense. It's going to be so stress-free. Stress-free. For everyone except the guy who'd be missing dinner to prevent 9 kids from burning the house down while simultaneously being out nearly $2,000 for the privilege. I stood there in that hallway, paperwork still clutched in my hand, feeling like I'd just discovered that everyone I trusted had been running a con game on me for months. Maybe years. This wasn't just casual family manipulation. This was calculated, premeditated exploitation with a side of complete disrespect for my autonomy as a human being. Marcus is just so good with children, Diane continued, and I could practically hear the satisfied smirk in her voice. And you know how he is. He never complains about anything. He'll probably think of some fun games to play with them. Never complains about anything. Right. Because every time I tried to bring up concerns about my role in this family, I'd been shut down faster than a food truck at a health inspector convention. Of course, I never complain. Complaining gets you labeled as selfish and ungrateful and not a team player in the great game of family obligations. The kids will be thrilled, Diane went on. Leo and Clara absolutely adore Uncle Marcus, and I'm sure all the other kids will too. It'll be like having a built-in entertainment coordinator for the evening. Uncle Marcus, the entertainment coordinator. That's what I'd become. Not Marcus, the successful professional. Not Marcus, the guy who just dropped a small fortune on dinner for people who apparently saw him as nothing more than free childcare. Just Uncle Marcus, the guy who exists to make everyone else's life easier while his own needs and desires become completely irrelevant. Margaret, I'm telling you, this is going to be the best Christmas Eve we've ever had. Diane concluded with the satisfaction of someone who just solved world hunger. All the adults downstairs enjoying good food and good conversation. All the kids upstairs having fun with Marcus. Everyone wins. Everyone wins. Everyone except me, apparently. I heard her wrapping up the conversation. Something about bringing wine and making sure to arrive by 5 so they could get settled before the chaos began. I quickly backtracked down the hallway and let myself out the front door, my head spinning with what I'd just discovered. Sitting in my car in their driveway, I tried to process what had just happened. This wasn't just a case of family members taking advantage of my good nature. This was a deliberate setup, planned in advance, where I'd been assigned the role of unpaid babysitter without anyone bothering to ask if I was okay with it. They'd just assumed I'd go along with it, the same way they'd assumed I'd pay for the entire dinner without question. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I'd been worried about disappointing the family, about not living up to their expectations, about being seen as selfish if I didn't contribute enough. Meanwhile, they'd been planning to stick me with 9 kids for the entire evening while they enjoyed the expensive dinner I'd bought them. 9 kids. Let's think about this for a minute. Leo and Clara, who individually could reduce my apartment to rubble in under an hour. Add 7 more kids of various ages, all hopped up on Christmas excitement and holiday sugar, trapped in one house for an entire evening. It would be like running an unsupervised daycare center in the middle of a candy factory explosion. And the adults would be downstairs, eating $1,800 catered food, having civilized conversation without any interruptions, while I'd be upstairs trying to prevent 9 small humans from recreating scenes from Lord of the Flies in Gerald and Diane's guest bedrooms. The worst part? Everyone would probably compliment me afterward about how great I was with the kids and how lucky the family is to have someone like me. They'd pat me on the head like a good dog who'd performed his tricks correctly, never acknowledging that I'd missed the entire dinner I'd paid for because I was too busy being their unpaid entertainment staff. I pulled out my phone and stared at the caterer's number. It would be so easy to just call and cancel the whole thing. Tell them there'd been a change of plans, get my money back, and let the family figure out their own Christmas Eve dinner situation. Let them scramble to find food for 25 people a week before Christmas. Let them deal with the logistics and the expense and the stress of coordinating a dinner party that size. But even as I thought about it, I could imagine the fallout. The disappointed faces, the guilt trips about ruining Christmas, the passive-aggressive comments that would follow me to every family gathering for the next decade. Laura would be caught in the middle, torn between supporting her husband and keeping peace with her family. I'd become the villain in the story, the selfish guy who canceled Christmas because he didn't want to help out with the kids. Except that wasn't the real story, was it? The real story was that I'd been set up. The real story was that a family had decided to use one of their members as a combination ATM and babysitting service without bothering to ask if he was okay with it. The real story was that I'd been so worried about being seen as difficult that I'd allowed myself to be taken advantage of in ways that would make a used car salesman blush. I sat there in that driveway, watching the afternoon light fade behind the perfectly manicured suburban houses, and realized something important. I had a choice to make. I could continue being Uncle Marcus, the entertainment coordinator, the guy who pays for everything and handles all the inconvenient parts of family gatherings while everyone else enjoys the benefits. Or I could do something about it. The question was, what was I going to do? For the first time in months, maybe years, I started to smile. Not the polite, go along with everything smile I'd been wearing like a mask, but a real smile. The kind of smile you get when you realize you're about to stop being a doormat and start being a person who makes his own choices. This was going to be interesting. You know that moment when you finally decide you've had enough of someone's bullshit, and suddenly everything becomes crystal clear? Like when you quit a terrible job and wonder why you put up with it for so long. Or when you break up with someone who's been treating you like garbage and realize you actually deserve better. Well, Sitting in my car in Gerald and Diane's driveway after overhearing their little conspiracy, I had what you might call an epiphany. Or maybe it was just the universe finally deciding to give me a backbone. Either way, I knew exactly what I had to do. The drive home was like one of those movie montages where the protagonist finally figures out their master plan. Except instead of dramatic music and slow-motion shots, I had Christmas carols on the radio and traffic jams full of people doing last-minute holiday shopping. But inside my head, pure strategic brilliance was happening. Or at least what felt like strategic brilliance to a guy who'd been getting walked on for so long that standing up for himself felt revolutionary. The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. They wanted to use me as their personal ATM and babysitting service? Fine. But they were going to have to do it without the ATM part. See how well their carefully orchestrated Christmas Eve worked out when they had to actually figure out the food situation themselves. I pulled into my parking spot and sat there for a moment, savoring what was about to happen. In about 10 minutes, I was going to make a phone call that would turn their perfectly planned evening into absolute chaos. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I was looking forward to the fallout. Laura wasn't home yet. She had some kind of work thing that was keeping her late, which was perfect. I needed to do this without having to explain myself or defend my decision to someone who would inevitably try to talk me out of it. This was between me and the catering company, and then between me and a family that had mistaken my kindness for stupidity one too many times. I found the caterer's business card stuck to my refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a pineapple. Don't ask me why I own a pineapple magnet. It's one of those household mysteries that develops over time. The company was called Elegant Events by Patricia, which should have been my first clue that I was dealing with someone who took herself very seriously. I dialed the number, and after being on hold for what felt like 17 hours while listening to some instrumental version of Jingle Bell Rock that made me want to throw my phone across the room, a woman answered. Elegant Events. This is Patricia speaking. How can I help you create an unforgettable experience today? An unforgettable experience. Oh, Patricia, if you only knew. Hi, Patricia. This is Marcus Thompson. I have a catering order for December 24th for 25 people. Oh yes, Mr. Thompson. Christmas Eve at the Gerald residence. We're so excited about this event. Everything is perfectly on schedule. Perfect. That was about to change. Yeah, well, that's actually why I'm calling. I need to cancel the order. There was a pause. Not just a regular pause, but one of those loaded silences where you can practically hear someone's brain trying to process information that doesn't compute with their worldview. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I need to cancel the Christmas Eve catering order. Mr. Thompson, I'm not sure I understand. The event is in 1 week. Everything has been prepared, ingredients have been ordered, staff has been scheduled. Right, I get that. But I'm canceling it. Another pause, longer this time. I could hear papers rustling in the background. Probably Patricia frantically flipping through her contracts to figure out how to handle this unprecedented situation. Sir, according to our agreement, cancellations within 7 days of the event are subject to significant penalties. You would forfeit your entire deposit, plus additional fees for the preparations already underway. How much would I get back? More paper rustling. I could practically hear Patricia doing math in her head, probably calculating how much money she was about to lose and whether there was any way to talk me out of this insane decision. Given the timing and the preparations already completed, we could refund approximately 40% of your total payment. 40%. So instead of being out $1,850, I'd only be out about $1,100. Still a lot of money. But hey, think of it as the cost of my liberation from family servitude. Some people pay therapists to help them set boundaries. I was paying a caterer. That works for me, I said. But sir, Patricia's voice had taken on that desperate tone people use when they're watching a perfectly good business transaction dissolve before their eyes. Christmas is only a week away. Your family is expecting this dinner. Surely there must be some way we can work this out. My family. Right. The family that had been planning to stick me with 9 kids for the entire evening while they enjoyed the expensive dinner I'd bought them. The family that saw me as a combination wallet and babysitting service rather than an actual human being with his own needs and desires. Patricia, I appreciate your concern, but my mind's made up. Cancel the order. Could I ask, is there a problem with our service? Something we could address to keep your business? And there it was, The assumption that this was somehow about her food quality or service rather than about me finally growing a spine and refusing to be taken advantage of. How do you explain to someone that you're canceling their catering because you accidentally discovered you've been cast as the unpaid entertainment coordinator in your own family drama? Your service is fine, Patricia. This is a family issue. That seemed to satisfy her, probably because family issue is one of those catch-all explanations that could mean anything from someone dying to someone getting divorced to someone finally deciding they're tired of being the family doormat. Very well, Mr. Thompson. I'll process the cancellation and the partial refund. You should see the money back in your account within 3 to 5 business days. Perfect. Thanks for your time. And Mr. Thompson, I hope everything works out with your family situation. If she only knew how much I was hoping for exactly the same thing. I hung up the phone and immediately felt this weird combination of relief and terror. Relief because I'd just saved myself about $750 and officially removed myself from the role of family ATM. Terror because I'd just basically carpet-bombed Christmas Eve for 25 people, and the fallout was going to be spectacular. But you know what? For the first time in months, I felt like I was in control of my own life. I wasn't just reacting to other people's expectations and demands. I was making a choice. A big, dramatic, probably going to cause World War III choice, but a choice nonetheless. I celebrated with a beer from the refrigerator, the good stuff I usually save for special occasions. Because this felt like a special occasion, the day Marcus Thompson stopped being a pushover and started being a person who makes his own decisions about how to spend his time and money. The beer tasted like freedom. And revenge. Mostly revenge, actually, but freedom was definitely in there too. I was halfway through my victory beer when my phone started buzzing. Text message from Diane. Marcus, honey, just confirming everything is set for Christmas Eve. So excited. I stared at that message for a long moment, imagining the look on her face when she found out that no, everything was definitely not set for Christmas Eve. In fact, Christmas Eve was about to become a disaster of epic proportions, and for once in my life, it wasn't going to be my problem to solve. I typed back, "We'll talk soon." Short, sweet, and completely unhelpful. Let her wonder what that meant. Let her spend the next few days thinking everything was fine while her perfectly orchestrated evening slowly crumbled around the edges. Step 1 of Operation Merry Revenge was officially complete. I'd canceled the catering, saved myself most of my money, and set in motion a chain of events that was going to teach my manipulative in-laws a valuable lesson about taking people for granted. Now came the fun part, figuring out what to do with my newly liberated Christmas Eve. Because if I wasn't going to be stuck upstairs babysitting 9 kids while everyone else enjoyed dinner on my dime, I was going to be somewhere else entirely. Somewhere that didn't involve family obligations, guilt trips, or small humans with sticky fingers and unlimited energy. Somewhere that sounded a lot like paradise. You know how sometimes the universe has this weird way of putting exactly what you need right in front of you at precisely the moment you need it most? Like when you're craving pizza and suddenly there's a coupon in your mailbox, or when you're having a terrible day and your favorite song comes on the radio. Well, apparently the universe had been paying attention to my family drama situation because sitting in my email inbox was the perfect solution to my newly created Christmas Eve problem. The email was from my college buddy Jason, and it had been sitting there for months like a time bomb of awesome, just waiting for me to be desperate enough to notice it. The subject line read, Vermont Ski Lodge Christmas, you in? Which should have immediately caught my attention back in September when he first sent it, but apparently I was too busy being the family's unpaid entertainment coordinator to recognize a golden opportunity when I saw one. Jason and I had been roommates junior and senior year at college, back when our biggest concerns were whether we had enough beer for the weekend and if that girl from chemistry class was actually flirting with us or just being nice. He'd gone on to become some kind of financial advisor, married a woman who actually seemed to enjoy his company, and somehow managed to maintain the kind of life where spontaneous ski trips were not only possible, but actively encouraged. I scrolled through the email, which was basically Jason being Jason, enthusiastic, slightly chaotic, and completely oblivious to the concept of planning anything more than 5 minutes in advance. His wife's family had this ski lodge in Vermont, some kind of rustic cabin situation that could sleep about 15 people and came with its own hot tub and enough firewood to heat a small city. They were planning a big family Christmas celebration, complete with skiing, hot chocolate, and what he described as absolutely zero drama, because everyone actually likes each other. Zero drama. Imagine that concept. The best part? He'd invited me back in September, probably as an afterthought while he was making his guest list, and remembered that his old college roommate might want to escape whatever suburban nightmare he'd gotten himself trapped in. At the time, I'd politely declined because I was a dutiful husband with family obligations and responsibilities. I probably sent him some boring response about already having plans with Laura's family, because that's what married people do. They sacrifice fun opportunities for the greater good of family harmony. What an idiot I'd been. But now I was a man with a canceled catering order and a desperate need to be anywhere other than Gerald and Diane's house on Christmas Eve. Now Jason's invitation looked like a lifeline thrown to a drowning man. I grabbed my phone and called him before I could talk myself out of it. Jason answered on the second ring, probably because he's one of those people who actually answers unknown numbers instead of letting everything go to voicemail like a normal paranoid human being. Marcus. Holy shit, dude, how are you? Hey Jason. I'm good, man. Listen, I know this is super last minute, but is that invitation to your ski lodge still open? The Christmas thing? Absolutely. Wait, what happened to the family obligations you mentioned? How do you explain to someone that you've just committed an act of catering terrorism against your in-laws because you discovered they'd been using you as their personal ATM and babysitting service? How do you summarize months of family manipulation and your recent descent into justified revenge in a way that doesn't make you sound completely insane? Let's just say I had a change of priorities, I said, which was probably the understatement of the century. Dude, that's awesome. Sarah's going to be so excited. She's been asking if you were coming ever since I mentioned I'd invited you. And my brother-in-law just canceled, so we've got perfect timing here. Perfect timing indeed. It was like the universe had been setting this up for months, just waiting for me to be pushed far enough to finally accept help when it was offered. What's the setup like? I asked, already mentally packing my bags. Oh man, you're going to love it. The lodge is right on the mountain, so you can literally ski out the back door. Sarah's mom stocks it with enough food to feed an army. There's a massive fireplace in the main room, and the hot tub overlooks this incredible valley view. Plus, everyone's super chill. No weird family dynamics or anything like that. No weird family dynamics. It was like he was describing a fantasy world where people actually enjoyed each other's company during the holidays instead of using them as unpaid labor. And the best part, Jason continued, getting more excited as he talked. Christmas Eve, we're doing this whole traditional thing. Skiing all day, huge dinner with Sarah's family's secret recipe prime rib, and then we all sit around the fire drinking hot toddies and telling embarrassing stories about each other. It's like a Hallmark movie, but with better alcohol and fewer cheesy monologues. A Hallmark movie with better alcohol. Compared to babysitting 9 sugar-fueled kids while everyone else enjoyed the expensive dinner I'd paid for, this sounded like winning the lottery. What should I bring? I asked, already committed to this plan before I'd fully processed what I was doing. Just yourself and whatever ski gear you've got. If you don't have gear, there's a rental place in town. Oh, and maybe bring some of that sarcastic wit I remember from college. Sarah's cousin thinks he's funnier than he actually is, and someone needs to keep him humble. Keeping someone humble through strategic sarcasm? Now that was a Christmas tradition I could get behind. Jason, this sounds perfect. When should I head up? Come up the 23rd if you can swing it. That way you can get settled, meet everyone, and we can hit the slopes early on Christmas Eve morning. Fair warning though, Sarah's family takes their skiing seriously. Her dad's like 65 and can still outski people half his age. The 23rd. That would mean leaving the day before Christmas Eve, right when the family would be expecting me to show up and start my duties as unpaid entertainment coordinator. The timing was absolutely perfect for maximum dramatic impact. I'll be there, I said, and meant it more than I'd meant anything in months. Excellent. I'll text you the address and directions. This is going to be epic, man. Just like old times, except with better food and legal alcohol. After I hung up, I sat there in my apartment, grinning like an idiot. In less than 24 hours, I'd gone from resigned family doormat to international man of mystery with holiday escape plans. Okay, maybe international was stretching it since Vermont is still technically the same country, but you get the idea. I started making a mental list of what I'd need to pack. Ski gear, which I actually owned thanks to a brief phase a few years ago when I thought I might become an outdoorsy person. Warm clothes, because December in Vermont is apparently cold enough to freeze your soul. And a really good attitude, because I was about to experience what Christmas could be like when you're surrounded by people who actually want you there. The best part was imagining the looks on everyone's faces when they realized I wasn't going to show up to be their unpaid babysitter and ATM. When they discovered that their carefully planned evening was about to become a logistical nightmare, because the guy who was supposed to handle everything had decided to handle his own happiness instead. For the first time in years, I was actually looking forward to Christmas. You know how they say revenge is a dish best served cold? Well, let me tell you something. Revenge is actually best served from a ski lodge in Vermont while you're sitting by a roaring fireplace, holding a mug of hot cocoa that someone else made for you, surrounded by people who invited you because they genuinely wanted your company and not because they needed someone to bankroll their holiday celebration. Christmas Eve morning at Jason's family lodge was like stepping into an alternate universe where families actually functioned like those commercials you see during the holidays. You know the ones where everyone's laughing and having genuine fun instead of passive-aggressively competing for who can be the most martyred by their sacrifices for the family good. I'd arrived the day before, December 23rd, after what was probably the most therapeutic drive of my adult life. 5 hours of interstate highway with nobody asking me to fix their computer, referee their arguments, or pay for their dinner. Just me, my car, some decent music, and the gradually increasing certainty that I was doing exactly the right thing for once in my life. The lodge was everything Jason had promised and more. It was one of those rustic but not too rustic places that looked like it belonged on the cover of a magazine about successful people who have their shit together. Real wood beams, stone fireplace big enough to roast a whole pig, and windows that looked out onto ski slopes that belonged in a postcard. But the best part wasn't the lodge itself, it was the people. Sarah's family treated me like I'd been part of their crew for years, instead of some random guy their son-in-law dragged along at the last minute. Her mom, Linda, handed me a cup of coffee and a homemade cookie within 5 minutes of walking through the door. Her dad, Bill, immediately started telling me stories about the mountain and asking what kind of skiing I was into, not because he was trying to be polite, but because he actually seemed interested in the answer. It was like being in a bizarro world where people said what they meant and meant what they said, where family time was actually enjoyable instead of an endurance test disguised as togetherness. Christmas Eve morning, I was sitting by the fire with Jason and a few of his wife's cousins, working on my second cup of coffee and feeling more relaxed than I had in months. We were planning out the day, skiing until mid-afternoon, then coming back to help with dinner prep, then settling in for what Linda promised would be the kind of Christmas Eve that makes you remember why you love the holidays. That's when my phone rang. I should have ignored it. I should have let it go to voicemail and dealt with whatever drama was calling me later after I'd had my day of actual enjoyment. But old habits die hard, and I made the mistake of looking at the caller ID. Laura. For a split second, I felt a pang of something that might have been guilt. Here I was, having the time of my life in Vermont, while she was presumably dealing with the fallout from my disappearing act. Maybe I should answer, try to explain myself, attempt to salvage some kind of peace between us. Then I remembered 9 kids upstairs while the adults enjoyed dinner on my dime, and I answered the phone. Hey Laura. Marcus. Her voice had that particular tone that every married man learns to recognize, the one that means you're in trouble, but she's trying to stay calm until she figures out exactly how much trouble you're in. Where are you? I looked out the window at the snow-covered mountains, then over at Jason who was making exaggerated, oh, faces at me, and smiled. I'm in Vermont. Silence. The kind of silence that happens when someone's brain is trying to process information that doesn't fit with their expectations of reality. You're what? Vermont. You know, the state with all the snow and mountains and people who make really good maple syrup. Marcus, this is not the time for jokes. Everyone's here. The whole family is here. Where are you really? I just told you. Vermont. I'm at a ski lodge with Jason and his family. More silence. But this time I could practically hear the gears turning in her head as she started to piece together what had happened. But what about Christmas Eve dinner? Everyone's expecting you. Mom's been asking where you are. Oh, about that dinner, I said, taking a sip of my coffee and enjoying the moment more than I probably should have. Funny story, I canceled the catering. The silence this time was so complete, I actually checked to make sure the call hadn't dropped. You what? I canceled it. Called Elegant Events by Patricia, told them we didn't need their services anymore. Got about half my money back, which was better than I expected, honestly. Marcus, you can't be serious. The food was supposed to arrive hours ago. Everyone's been waiting, and yeah, well, they're going to keep waiting because there's no food coming. I could hear voices in the background now, lots of them, all talking at once in that particular way that families do when a crisis is unfolding and everyone wants to contribute their opinion about how to handle it. But why? Laura's voice had shifted from angry to bewildered, like she genuinely couldn't understand why I would do such a thing. What happened? Did the caterer cancel? Did something go wrong? This was the moment I'd been both dreading and looking forward to. The moment when I got to explain exactly why I decided to blow up their perfectly planned Christmas Eve. Oh no, the caterer was fine. Great, actually. Very professional. I canceled because I found out what you all had planned for me. What are you talking about? I'm talking about 9 kids upstairs while all the adults enjoyed dinner downstairs. I'm talking about me being the unpaid babysitter for the entire evening while everyone else socialized over the expensive meal I paid for. Sound familiar? Another silence, but this one had a different quality to it. This was the silence of someone who just realized they'd been caught. Marcus, that's not. We weren't trying to. Oh, come on, Laura. I heard your mom on the phone with Aunt Margaret. The whole thing was planned out. Uncle Marcus will handle all the kids upstairs. The adults can enjoy themselves downstairs. Everyone wins. Except Uncle Marcus, of course, but who cares what he wants, right? Marcus, you're being dramatic. The kids love spending time with you, and I love spending time with them too, when I choose to. When I'm asked if I want to, not when I'm voluntarily assigned babysitting duty without anyone bothering to check if I'm okay with it. The background noise was getting louder now. I could make out Gerald's voice saying something about responsibility and Diane asking what was happening with the food. Marcus, please, just come home. We can work this out. The family is. The family is what? Disappointed? Angry? Let me guess. They're blaming you for my behavior, right? Asking how you could let your husband ruin Christmas. That's not fair. You know what's not fair? Treating someone like a combination ATM and babysitting service instead of a family member. You know what's not fair? Planning out someone's entire evening without asking them if they want to participate. I could hear more voices now, getting closer to the phone. Someone was asking Laura what I was saying. Someone else was asking about the food situation. Don't worry, though. I continued, starting to enjoy myself despite the chaos I was causing. The kids can entertain each other. I hear chaos builds character. Marcus, you can't just abandon the family like this. It's Christmas Eve. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm choosing to spend Christmas Eve with people who actually want me there, not people who see me as free labor and an open wallet. But where are we supposed to get food for 25 people? Everything's closed. It's Christmas Eve. And there it was. Not, we're sorry we took advantage of you. Or, we should have asked what you wanted to do. Just panic about the logistics of feeding people, as if the only problem with this whole situation was the inconvenience it was causing them. I don't know, Laura. Maybe try that thing where families work together to solve problems. You know, like a potluck? Or maybe order pizza. I hear they deliver. Pizza? For Christmas Eve dinner. Why not? It's food, it's festive in its own way, and nobody has to spend $2,000 or miss dinner to babysit other people's kids. The background noise was reaching epic proportions now. I could hear multiple conversations happening at once, people asking questions, someone saying something about grocery stores still being open. Marcus, this is insane. You're acting like a child. Actually, I'm acting like an adult who's finally learned to say no to unreasonable demands. It's pretty liberating, honestly. Jason was openly laughing now, having picked up enough of the conversation to understand what was happening. A couple of his cousins were listening in too, their faces showing a mix of amusement and horror at the family drama unfolding in their peaceful holiday retreat. Look, Laura, I've got to go. There's skiing to do and hot cocoa to drink. And for the first time in months, nobody's expecting me to pay for anyone else's good time or handle anyone else's responsibilities. Marcus, don't hang up. We need to talk about this. We can talk after Christmas. Right now, I'm going to enjoy my holiday with people who invited me because they like my company, not because they need my services. And with that, I hung up. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Jason started slow clapping. "Dude," he said, grinning from ear to ear, "that was epic. Remind me never to get on your bad side." I looked at my phone, which was already buzzing with what I assumed were increasingly frantic text messages, and turned it off. "You know what?" I said, standing up and stretching. "I think I'm ready to hit those slopes now." And for the first time in months, I meant it. You know how sometimes you do something that you know is going to have consequences, and part of you feels guilty about it, but there's this other part that's just dying to know how spectacular the fallout is going to be? Well, Christmas morning in Vermont, I woke up to what can only be described as the most entertaining phone notification situation of my adult life. I'd kept my phone off since hanging up on Laura the day before, partly because I wanted to actually enjoy Christmas Eve without constant buzzing interruptions, and partly because I'm not completely heartless. I figured the family deserved at least one evening to sort out their disaster without me gloating from afar. But Christmas morning, after an absolutely perfect evening of skiing, hot chocolate, and actual enjoyable family conversation with people who weren't related to me, curiosity got the better of me. I turned on my phone while sitting by the fireplace with a cup of coffee that someone else had made for me, and it was like opening a digital Pandora's box of chaos. 50 missed calls. I'm not exaggerating, 50. From Laura, from Diane, from Gerald, from Bianca, and from numbers I didn't even recognize, which meant the drama had spread beyond the immediate family into the extended network of relatives and probably neighbors who'd gotten dragged into the crisis. But the real entertainment was in the text messages. 30 of them, ranging from panicked to angry to desperately pleading. It was like reading the play-by-play of a disaster movie. But instead of aliens or natural catastrophes, the villain was my refusal to bankroll and babysit their holiday celebration. The early messages were mostly from Laura, sent while I was presumably still skiing and having the time of my life. "Marcus, please call me back. Everyone's asking about the food. Dad's calling restaurants, but everything's closed. The kids are getting hungry and cranky. Uncle Rick brought wine but no food. He thought you were handling everything." Then they started getting more desperate. "Aunt Margaret is having a meltdown about the lack of organization. Mom's crying in the kitchen. Dad found one Chinese place open, but they can only deliver for 10 people max. Leo asked where Uncle Marcus is, and Clara started crying." And then, as the evening apparently progressed and the full scope of the disaster became clear, they shifted into pure chaos. The Chinese food order got mixed up. Half of it is vegetarian, and Uncle Rick is having an allergic reaction to something. Cousin Jamie brought her boyfriend, and he's lactose intolerant, but nobody knows what's in anything. The Hendersons brought a casserole, but it's some kind of tuna thing, and the kids won't eat it. Dad tried to order pizza, but they're backed up 3 hours because of Christmas Eve. I was reading these messages with the kind of fascination you usually reserve for watching videos of people attempting stunts that are obviously going to end badly. Each text painted a clearer picture of what had to be the most disorganized Christmas Eve dinner in suburban history. But it got better. Around what must have been dinner time, the messages started coming from other family members. "Gerald, this is all your fault. We look like fools." "Diane, I don't understand how you could do this to the family." "Bianca, Victor had to drive 40 minutes to find an open grocery store, and all they had left was frozen dinners." "Aunt Margaret, apparently someone had given her my number." "Young man, I have never been so disappointed in a family member's behavior in all my 73 years." "Rick, dude, what the hell? My wife is diabetic, and we don't know what's in any of this random food people brought." And my personal favorite, from a number I didn't recognize, but who had apparently been briefed on the situation. "This is Margaret's daughter-in-law, Susan. I drove 3 hours to be here, and now we're eating TV dinners. This is unacceptable. Susan, whoever you are." I thought to myself, "You're absolutely right. It is unacceptable. What's unacceptable is that your family assumes one person should pay for and organize dinner for 25 people, while also being responsible for entertaining 9 children for the entire evening. But hey, thanks for your input." Jason wandered over with his own cup of coffee and noticed me scrolling through what was apparently an epic saga of holiday disaster. "Dude, you're grinning like a maniac. Please tell me you're reading updates from the Christmas Eve disaster you created." "Oh man, Jason, this is better than any Christmas movie ever made." I showed him a few of the messages, and he nearly spit coffee all over his wife's family's expensive rug. Wait, wait, read me the one from Aunt Margaret again. Young man, I have never been so disappointed in a family member's behavior in all my 73 years. 73 years. This woman has lived through the Depression, World War II, the 60s, probably multiple family dramas, and you canceling catering is the most disappointing thing she's ever witnessed? That's actually kind of an honor when you think about it. He had a point. In a world full of genuinely terrible behavior, managing to top Aunt Margaret's disappointment list by refusing to be taken advantage of was almost an achievement. The messages kept coming throughout Christmas morning, each one painting a clearer picture of what had apparently been a complete catastrophe. According to the play-by-play I was receiving, here's what Christmas Eve at the Gerald household had looked like. 5 p.m., family starts arriving, expecting professional catering that doesn't exist. 5:30 p.m., panic sets in as people realize there's no dinner plan. 6 p.m., Gerald starts calling restaurants, discovers everything is closed or has 3-hour wait times. 6:30 p.m., Diane has what Laura described as a nervous breakdown in the kitchen. 7 p.m., various family members dispatched to find any open food establishments. 7:30 p.m., Uncle Rick returns with Chinese food for 10 people, but there are 25 hungry relatives. 8 p.m., Bianca and Victor return from a 40-minute drive with frozen dinners and a rotisserie chicken. 8:30 p.m., someone discovers the Henderson's tuna casserole, which becomes surprisingly popular despite initial skepticism. 9 p.m., the kids start having complete meltdowns due to hunger and confusion about why there's no proper dinner. 9:30 p.m., Aunt Margaret announces she's never attending another family function at this house. 10 p.m., Rick's mother, the one who was supposed to gossip about how disorganized Laura's family was, starts openly criticizing the lack of planning to anyone who will listen. 10:30 p.m., multiple family members leave early, citing various excuses, but obviously fleeing the disaster. 11 p.m., the remaining relatives eat a combination of frozen dinners, Chinese takeout, and tuna casserole, while the 9 children run wild through the house, without supervision. It was like reading the script for a sitcom, except instead of laugh tracks, there were probably actual tears and genuine family trauma. But the absolute best message came from Laura around midnight. Marcus, Aunt Margaret swore she's never coming back to a family event at our house. Rick's mom spent the entire evening talking to the other relatives about how unprepared and disorganized we are. Half the family left before 10 p.m. The kids destroyed Mom and Dad's guest bathroom because nobody was watching them. This is a disaster. I read that message 3 times, savoring every word. Aunt Margaret swearing off future family events? Rick's mother gossiping about disorganization? Half the family leaving early? The kids destroying property without supervision? It was like every single thing they'd planned to avoid by sticking me with babysitting duty and expecting me to bankroll the evening had happened anyway. Except now they also had to deal with the humiliation of looking completely incompetent in front of the extended family and neighbors. Jason, I called over to where he was helping his mother-in-law with some kind of breakfast preparation that involved actual teamwork and mutual respect. I think I just won Christmas. Yeah? How's that? Well, according to my intelligence reports from the disaster zone, last night featured hungry relatives, crying children, restaurant mix-ups, frozen dinners, bathroom destruction, early departures, extended family gossip, and at least one dramatic swearing off of future family events. Jason's wife, Sarah, looked over from where she was setting the table, a table where I'd been invited to sit as an actual guest rather than an unpaid employee. That sounds terrible, she said, but she was smiling. Should you feel bad about it? I thought about that for a moment. Should I feel bad? Should I feel guilty about the chaos that had unfolded because I'd finally stood up for myself? Should I regret causing a family crisis by refusing to be taken advantage of? You know what? I said, looking out at the snow-covered mountains and thinking about the evening of skiing and genuine laughter I'd had instead of wrangling 9 sugar-fueled kids while everyone else enjoyed dinner on my dime. I really don't think I should. And for the first time in years, I meant it completely. You know how they say all good things must come to an end? Well, sometimes the end of one good thing is actually the beginning of an even better thing. Like when you quit a job you hate and realize you should have done it years ago, Or when you finally break up with someone who's been making you miserable and wonder why you wasted so much time being unhappy. I got back to my apartment 2 days after Christmas, tanned from skiing, relaxed from actual vacation time, and feeling like I'd just completed some kind of personal rehabilitation program. 3 days with Jason's family had reminded me what it felt like to be around people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company, who didn't see every gathering as an opportunity to delegate their responsibilities to someone else. I was unpacking my ski gear and thinking about maybe making this Vermont trip an annual tradition when I heard the unmistakable sound of multiple car doors slamming in my parking lot. Not the regular sound of neighbors coming home from work, but the coordinated door slamming that happens when an angry group of people arrives somewhere with a mission. I looked out my window and saw them: Laura, Gerald, Diane, and what appeared to be Bianca bringing up the rear like some kind of family intervention backup squad. They were marching toward my apartment building with the kind of determination you usually see in movies right before someone gets dramatically confronted about their life choices. Perfect. I'd been wondering when the other shoe was going to drop. I opened my door before they could knock, partly because I'm not a complete monster and partly because I was genuinely curious to see how this conversation was going to play out. Would they lead with guilt? Anger? Threats? Fake concern about my mental health? Well, I said, leaning against my doorframe like I was greeting old friends instead of the family members whose Christmas I'd just spectacularly sabotaged. To what do I owe this unexpected pleasure? Gerald pushed past me into my apartment without being invited, which was pretty much exactly what I'd expected from him. Diane followed, then Bianca, and finally Laura, who at least had the decency to look slightly embarrassed about this whole confrontation squad situation. Marcus, Gerald started, and I could tell he'd been practicing this speech during the drive over. We need to talk. Sure thing, I said, closing the door behind them. Can I get anyone some coffee? Water? A reality check about appropriate family boundaries. Wrong answer, apparently. Gerald's face got that red color it turns when someone questions his authority, and Diane made that little huffing noise she does when she thinks someone's being disrespectful. This isn't a joke, Marcus, Diane said, doing her best impression of a disappointed mother addressing a teenager who'd missed curfew. Do you have any idea what you put us through? Actually, yes, I said, settling into my favorite chair. I got a pretty detailed play-by-play through text messages. Frozen dinners, crying relatives, bathroom destruction, early departures. Sounds like it was quite the evening. It was humiliating. Bianca jumped in, apparently unable to contain herself any longer. Rick's mother spent the entire night talking about how disorganized we are. Aunt Margaret swore she's never coming back. The kids were asking where Uncle Marcus was, and we didn't know what to tell them. You could have told them the truth, I suggested. That Uncle Marcus decided he didn't want to spend Christmas Eve babysitting 9 kids while everyone else enjoyed the expensive dinner he paid for. That's not what was happening, Laura said, finally speaking up. We weren't trying to take advantage of you. Laura, I literally heard your mother on the phone planning out how I'd handle all the kids upstairs while the adults enjoyed themselves downstairs. What would you call that? Silence. The kind of silence that happens when people realize their carefully constructed version of reality doesn't match the actual facts. Gerald tried a different approach. Marcus, family helps family. That's how it's always been. You're right, Gerald. Family should help family. The key word there being family, as in everyone contributes, everyone helps, everyone shares the load. Not one person pays for everything and handles all the inconvenient parts while everyone else enjoys the benefits. We never asked you to pay for everything, Diane protested. You didn't ask. That's the problem. You just assumed. You assigned me roles without checking if I wanted them, made plans that involved my time and money without including me in the decision-making process. They were looking at me like I'd suddenly started speaking a foreign language, like the concept of actually asking someone before volunteering them for unpaid labor was some kind of radical new idea. Marcus, Laura said, trying a softer approach, the kids really do love spending time with you, and you're so good with them. And I love spending time with them too, when I choose to. But being good at something doesn't mean I want to do it every single weekend for the rest of my natural life. We'll never invite you to family events again, Diane threatened, like this was supposed to be the ultimate punishment that would bring me to my knees begging for forgiveness. I looked at her for a long moment, then started laughing. Not mean laughter, just genuine amusement at the idea that being excluded from events where I'd been treated like unpaid staff was supposed to be a punishment. Finally, I said, grinning from ear to ear, a Christmas miracle. The looks on their faces were priceless. Pure shock, like they couldn't believe I wasn't devastated by the threat of being excluded from future family obligations. We're serious, Marcus, Gerald said, trying to regain control of the conversation. If this is how you're going to act, you're not welcome. Perfect. That works out great for everyone. You don't have to deal with my selfish behavior, and I don't have to deal with being treated like a combination ATM and babysitting service. It's a win-win situation. They stormed out after that, muttering among themselves about ingratitude and selfishness and how some people don't appreciate family. I closed the door behind them and immediately went to my phone to block their numbers. All of them. And you know what? For the first time in years, my apartment felt peaceful. No weekend invasions from sugar-fueled kids, no guilt trips about family obligations, no pressure to bankroll other people's social events. I made myself a cup of coffee, sat in my favorite chair, and started planning my next vacation. Maybe I'd go back to Vermont. Maybe I'd try Colorado. Hell, maybe I'd go somewhere completely different, somewhere I'd never been able to go because my weekends and vacation budget had been hijacked by family responsibilities. The possibilities were endless, and for the first time in years, they were all mine. Sometimes the best gift you can give yourself isn't something you buy, it's something you stop giving away. My peace of mind, my free time, my financial resources, my right to make my own choices about how to spend my life. Moral of the story? Sometimes the best gift you can give yourself at Christmas is learning to say no, and meaning it.